Hello, welcome to the Myth-Busting Neurodiverse Relationships podcast. I'm Natalie Roberts and I'm here with my co-host, Heather Parks. We've both been in our neurodiverse relationships and families for more than 25 years. We met 10 years ago when we were feeling really desperate and trying to solve a lot of issues in our relationship and our families. We've been journeying since then. We've found many more positive and hopeful ways to solve, resolve, repair, reconnect in those relationships and in our families, in our lives. And we now co-host also Loving Difference online, giving hope and a way forward for neurodiverse relationships. In this podcast, though, we're busting the myths about neurodiverse relationships, which we had when we started this journey, that we've realised aren't true, and that actually were preventing us from recovering and having the relationships with our partners and children that we wanted. So we want to dispel these myths and bring you hope that absolutely things can change. So whether you're out and about or comfy with a cuppa, let's dive into our next conversation. See you there.
Today we're going to be talking about a subject really close to both our hearts. It's something that has affected our families deeply and profoundly and is ongoing. We are talking school, we're talking education, we're talking about a system of sort of behaviour modification, really. Whether your child's neurodivergent or neurotypical, that's a system that tends to be running in most schools, rewards and punishments. But of course, for our young people, or for many of them, school becomes even more tricky. Sensory overwhelm, there is huge anxiety, a lot of transitions, just a social overload. So we've both gone through children who really struggle to go to school at all, and have had mental health impacts in the long term, really, as a result. We hope that one day the school system will change completely and we will have a revolution that means that all children's needs are met by the education system, and we hope it will one day be a really happy place. But if your child is struggling, if school is not a happy place for them, please do hop into Loving Difference. Come and talk to us. We know what that feels like. We know how hard it is to hold space for that. We've had to shift our mindsets. We've had to rethink our views about the education system. We've had to prioritise mental health. We've had to jump off that kind of, that highway that everyone else is on and do something different so that our young people could be okay. So you're not alone. It can feel like a lonely place, but if you hop into Loving Difference with us, you'll find a lot of friends there. So listen, this is a really important conversation. We're really glad you're here and love to have your views. Take care. So really good to talk about school, I thought, today, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about school.
School, education, whatever, with the systems that we are bound to in this lovely world that we're in. And I kind of probably will end up doing a bit of venting because it is a source of frustration for me at the moment in a variety of ways. And but it'd be really good to
What
actually
about
talk
sharing where we're at with our young people and their ages, just in terms of where we're at? Because I'm in a slightly different place than you still with the school system. So I've got 3 children. One's 31, so well beyond the school system, but can still recollect and think back to how it was for them. And then my other 2 children are now 22 and 19. So we are outside the other end of being in the school education system. But I would say we're still dealing with the aftermath of that, and still very much have a lot to say about how that experience was for us as a family, for us as parents, and for my young people as well, in terms of how they found that
Yeah, and just how much we've shifted. We've had to shift, haven't we, from
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of, our beliefs and values around it and our priority about it
So what
has
about you?
shifted.
What do you
So
want to just
yeah,
introduce,
yeah, I'll
sort of
just
say
do
where
that as
you're at with
well.
yours?
Yeah, so I'm getting there. I am like counting down the days until I'm out of it, and obviously I have choice around that, and we are in a choice to stay in it at the moment because that's what my youngest young person wants. So I have a 14-year-old who has a couple of years left of sort of GCSE time, and then some kind of sixth form next steps to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
And then I've got just turned 17-year-old who is kind of in it through choice as well, but at an alternative provision. So a very, very different aspect of education and experience of. And then I've got a 19-year-old. Have I got a 19-year-old? That sounds too old. Maybe he's 18. That's really bad. 19, I think.
They're all about the same age, you and I, around that
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
aren't
it's
they?
all
I think we
it's all a
forget
bit
how close
complicated,
they
isn't
are in
it? A
age.
19-year-old who is is having a year out, I would describe it
Yeah.
as, and a 20-year-old who is, still has a lot of, like you say, a lot of baggage around the education system, and we're not finished with it. For various reasons, because we've had to kind of start again and keep going. It's been a bit stop start. So, yeah, some really tricky times.
Yeah, and I think even though we're at sort of, I guess, as we've been through a lot of it and we're coming out the other side, I can still look back to even primary school and early secondary school. We're both in the UK, so that's sort of the terminology for us, and how difficult it started to get, when it started to get challenging or more challenging, and even now with the neurodiversity aspect, which we didn't know until mine were around 11 and 14, and my stepson was much older. We hadn't known that a lot of the challenges we were having in primary school, and even some in nursery when I look back, were to do with a lot of this. So it's always, those challenges have always been there, we just didn't have the explanations for them, and it's been easier now with that lens to be able to see what impact the current education system has for our young people, and for those who are different and learn differently, and all sorts of things like that.
And I still very much feel sort of part of that world as well, because I still do like SEN advocacy and trying to get alternative provision for children who are too anxious to attend school, or who are, endlessly at risk of exclusion through not being able to cope with the system and not being able to manage their behaviour in a way that is acceptable to the hierarchies. And
How far back in the education system, I guess even beyond where you knew what was happening, when you look back now, where do you notice the issue started, or where did things start to get difficult for your
isn't
people?
hindsight a wonderful thing?
Yeah,
Because I can see it all the way back. I mean,
yeah,
at
I can now.
preschool, my eldest was pretty much mute.
Yeah,
He had this little very super confident friend who used to just talk for him.
okay, yeah.
He was always sort of on the periphery, on the edge, doing his own thing, not really joining in, and she'd just speak for him and seemed to know what he needed, and kind of sorted that out. So, I mean, that's certainly for him, I would say then. And he was struggling in terms of speech development and language, and just so many challenges. And then when we started reception, we had all the hassles with the uniform, and the shoes not being
Yes,
right, and the socks
okay.
not being right, and the clothes being difficult, and the noise, and the dinner hall. And that's before we even started to think about reading or writing or any of the actual learning. It was just the environmental stuff was such a challenge.
Yeah, yeah,
And then on top of that, it was just separation. He was actually very compliant and just did what he thought he had to do. I mean, to the point where, he was in a very, very bad state before he actually said, I don't want to go to school. Whereas I think my third child, who in retrospect also actually at one point bit me outside preschool when we were queuing up to go in. I remember being so shocked and very angry. And I look back and think, wow, he really was trying to get my attention about something. And for him it was horrendous separation anxiety. And then you'd have that horrible like sick feeling as you left them, and then they'd all
Not
reassure
feeling
you
safe
that
there.
everything's all right, when you left. Oh, they're fine when you've gone. That's what you'd always hear. Oh, they're fine when they're at school. And it was many years later, I bumped into a lady who worked at the preschool where this child was. And she said, "Oh, your poor little boy. And he was always crying, wasn't he?" And I was
Oh,
just like,
Heather.
oh, God, it
Yeah.
was just heartbreaking. And they never told me, they never phoned to say he was still upset. They always told me he was fine. And that's the start of the whole thing. That just baffles me. Why is it in their interest to do that?
Yeah.
Why did they
Because it
do
just
that?
all becomes more and more traumatic and more unsafe, and
Yeah.
less and less trust of people and all of these things, isn't it? They just become, it's just cumulative then, isn't it? When you think how many hours a day and how many days a week and how many weeks a year that's happening.
And how long that day must feel. And even still, you can feel myself, just it really welling up, because you just think, and then they think you were supposed to be the mum who was supposed to protect them from this, and you kind of had such just a focused belief that school was some kind of essential
Have to do it.
thing that you didn't have any choice about. And so I just unquestionably kept taking him even though I was seeing this upset behavior. And so I've had all sorts of kind of at one point or other, all of mine have had periods where they were unable to go to school, and I've had various different, depending where they were and what pieces of paper they have and what labels they had at the time, I had various responses from the services and systems around that, from pretty much being ignored and totally forgotten about to being threatened with prosecution and imprisonment and fines.
Yeah.
So it's all, it's heavy stuff, isn't it?
It is really heavy. I think ours got most heavy in secondary school, but again, on reflection, I think that's when they started to find it much more difficult. I think the issues that I recall in primary school were more around social situations for mine, around friendships, and difficulties with that kind of thing, which were often just seen to be normal stuff with girls. And and so at the time, I think it didn't often, so I think it was sort of a lot of that. And then just on the learning side, also quite a lot of things around needing more support than other people, not working independently enough, their neediness, and then also particularly around, just thinking specifically some learning things, but around comprehension. I can remember having to do extra books and then be sort of talking a lot around that, and subsequently, not beyond secondary school, realising that actually there was dyslexia issues that were not getting picked up, because my family can read, in terms of the testing they ever do about reading, they all passed that test fine in terms of actually being able to read, but their ability to interpret written text is different. So it's a different kind of dyslexia, and then we recognised that Pete has the same. So that was, I could, they were trying to battle that the whole time, and not get picked up. That wasn't getting picked up. So I think they were finding a lot of things difficult, and again, not being able to meet the assessment criteria and those kinds of things. And I think all of that was really tricky.
It's really frustrating, isn't it, when you see the struggles and it seems blatantly obvious to you that they're really struggling.
I also had no real explanations for it myself. I couldn't, other than they're not doing well enough, not doing good enough, not meeting the standards and the criteria that are expected. And then they were given we didn't have EHCP. We've never had, we could have gone for some of those, but have never done that. But there's a thing, what's the thing before that? An IEP?
Individualised educational plan.
So specific things that they were working towards, and they both had those in primary school around, often around social situations. I remember one about apologising. There was a whole objective about apologising, and sharing even or something, and then things around, particularly around comprehension and some of those kinds of things. And I sort of look back now, and I just felt like that those were things that I had to figure out as a parent and get them to be able to do. When now I know that actually their learning preferences, the way they learn, is different and doesn't fit with that same system, and they do need additional help or different ways of having questions asked or information presented,
Different
or
prompts
different
or
ways to access information, which only really became apparent, I would say, another nearly 10 years later, around GCSEs, when things started to really, for my middle child, got really difficult, when the pressure began to get kind of ramped up around assessment and exams, and us just getting to the point, which was pre-diagnosis as well, around autism, and them just saying life's just too hard, I just don't want to do it anymore, it's just too difficult, and just realising that that's what the school system was creating, and that there were needs, they knew what those needs were, and they could articulate what they were, but school wouldn't provide them, because they couldn't do something different for one child that they couldn't do for everyone else. And I just think that started to become my biggest issue with the whole thing, was that my child knows what they're needing. They're even can ask and articulate that, which was only things like, could you come and talk to me in the lesson and check I'm doing all right, rather than put my hand up, because that felt too, had its own set of staff. There were, none of these things were, they weren't like, I need extra staff, or I need, big interventions or anything. But they just became too much without those, and for my other young person, it was more around just attending at all. The anxiety was just too high, and feeling sick every day, and then the requirements and the persistence around attendance that just became pretty relentless.
And we've had a lot of that as well, around anxiety, and then kind of school, as they call it, school refusal, but it's not really refusing, it's an anxiety based emotional issue.
They just didn't feel safe there, and just felt anxious every day. And you're right, we just kept going, and to begin with, for sure, just felt like that's what we're supposed to do. Though I think I would say I didn't really feel like I did have choices. It was like I had to do what the school say.
I did.
What the child says.
I did sort of know that we had some kind of option around going for homeschooling, but at the time I was also trying to earn a living.
Yeah, me too.
I knew that I didn't have any confidence in my own skills to be a teacher, because I've already had worked out that we were really struggling with some of this stuff at home. The homework was sucky, and we were getting into like, I kind of worried that would affect my relationship with them, so I didn't want to get into a homeschool situation either. So
it was kind of a battle, wasn't it? All of that was really a battle.
I just, and it was frustrating at times as well, because and I do, and some of the frustrations were things that you could sort of relate to as well, like it's that kind of all having all these ideas in your head and not being able to get them down, but when you're kind of then trying to coach someone else to get those things, and you're thinking you struggle with that sometimes yourself, and it's just like one big, it's like, oh my goodness, I've done my sentence, I don't want to do the sentence again, and then you're thinking, oh my goodness, is that how I see school?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always had one of mine, they're just very, very creative, and I think the education system really just zapped or suffocated all their imagination out of them, and their creativity just sort of became nothing really in the end. It's really so sad. So I think anxiety was going up. The things that would counter that, were
becoming less and less enjoyable,
becoming less and less, and then even not doing them outside school, because it all just felt like
school.
Too much.
We had that exactly with art GCSE. Is that what kind of you're saying as well? Like that art GCSE nearly killed all joy
Yeah, it did.
in art for my son, and that was really sad to see. And it was
Yes.
years before
Yeah.
he picked up
Yeah.
and started sketching
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, it
And
has been.
that
It
was
was 2 to 3 years here before.
yeah.
Yeah, they've
And
gone
that's
and
the
bought a
kind of,
colouring book last year and done something
damage that
again.
it's done, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's,
Yes.
that's something that used to be a joy and an outlet
Yes.
for them,
Yeah.
became a something to worry about,
Yeah.
because actually it wasn't about art and creativity. It was about demonstrating that you could do something that
Yeah.
someone else could do.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah. It's really very sad. Very sad.
it is
So I
sad.
think, and then we moved into sort of college environment as well, which was a bit different and had some, was more flexible and yeah, so that was different, but still the issues around anxiety and different needs, different learning needs, different social needs, just weren't met. They just were not. There wasn't enough understanding or interest or time from anyone for my people to feel really safe and be able to thrive. It just wasn't. It wasn't going to be possible.
And that's the
Really
key,
difficult. It
isn't
all
it?
felt a
That
battle.
that safety, that sense of safety, and that's not something that's in their
No.
heads. That's got to be felt in their whole body, doesn't it? That needs to be like, I'm okay, I'm safe, I can handle this. And that is not what the experience was. And certainly for some of my children, that resulted in horrible cycles of kind of productivity, burnout,
Yeah.
in bed for months,
Yeah.
going back into it, and also just a horrible kind of self-esteem, all caught up in
All of
this
that.
whole desire to have to do well, and that became a kind of a real, we had issues around perfectionism and redoing, and no grades was ever good enough except for the very, very top grade, and then we got all down that line with one,
I
and
think
then
also that life was going to be pretty boring. If this is as good as, what's the saying, like school's the best year of your life kind of thing. And I think they're
yeah.
thinking, if this is the best, then, life's not going to be that great, is it? I mean, I just think they just have become so disillusioned about all of it. And it's very depressing. And it doesn't surprise me then that we end up in situations where there's high anxiety, a high experience of depression, sort of lack of purpose, and stuff that brings you some fulfillment and joy. It's all just, there isn't any, all of that gets
It's like
squeezed
life's
out.
been just squashed out of them, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So
And
what decisions, or what about these narratives then have we decided over time? I can remember some quite key moments and decision points where I stepped away from what I felt like I should be doing, or that school told, the school narrative would say that as a parent I was responsible, or I should do, or what apparently was best for my children, and actually deciding that was wrong, and that I needed to make some different choices. Do you remember what some of those have been for you? Because I think what I think is really helpful for others who are experiencing the same is to give them some a bit of encouragement, really, and some ideas about some of the narratives actually that we can just step away from and say,
yeah.
actually no. I can just remember going, actually no, I'm not going to do that anymore, and because my young person's health is more important.
And there's so many lies. We are fed so many lies, isn't it? It's like, so we get kind of, well, they have to wear uniform because they might get a job where they're going to wear uniform, and then they have to comply. Well, if they're feeling that strongly about it, they won't get that job, will they? They'll go and get a job where they don't have to wear a uniform. And
they're also told loads of lies. I think they're also told loads of myths in school to scare them, or to get them to work and get them to perform and to
this is
work
the most
harder.
important
And I think
time of your life.
Yeah.
And that started
Yes.
earlier and earlier and earlier. So that was a sort
I think
of thing.
it's even in primary school now.
Ramping up at GCSE, didn't it? And now it's like, I was talking to one of my son's key workers the other day, who's got a 7-year-old, and it's having that kind of thing pushed on them
Yes.
because they've got SATs coming up
Yes.
in
Yeah,
year
yeah, I think it's,
2.
yeah, it's
And
not
you
okay.
just think it's not okay. And so she apparently that they're in that situation, you've got teachers saying, well, you probably should be doing your homework before you can go to football, you know. And you're like, 7? I think
I
you should be
know.
going to football. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, or whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things, isn't it? So
Mm.
I think there was a real myth around homework, wasn't there? You know, and was such a sucker for, you know, just assuming, because what my feeling was is my child is struggling, therefore we've got to do more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, actually what was happening is my child was exhausted
Yeah.
and needed to be doing less.
Yeah, I
So,
think for me it was that decision that my young people we're gonna allow them and recognize that we all learn at our own pace and life is going to have its own journey and course. And I think partly I'd been recognizing that for myself, I think, and so just I guess recognizing that it was the system says you have to be here at certain ages, and if you're not here at these ages then you won't get this job, or these opportunities will be gone. I just started realizing that the risk is that we get to that age, and there it is still a risk, we're still recovering, I would say now, that we've got to that age and we're not in any mental or emotionally healthy state to be working anyway. That's the situation we're in at the moment for one of mine, is that their mental health is so poor from the effects of school that they're not in a position to work. So it hasn't worked for them, you know, and I think that's just so sad, so sad. So being able to instead say, actually, that's where we are at the moment. We might not have maybe had other decisions got made before, but you're going to be on your own journey at your own pace, and there's plenty of other doorways, plenty of other opportunities. There are all sorts of other possibilities and ways to train and learn and find the thing you want to do, and there's limitless numbers of things. Like the discussions at school about careers and everything are so narrow that I sort of just try and use more possibility thinking, and that it can go any direction. We just need to do it a bit at a time, and that has been liberating, I think, for our whole family to be able
really
to say
liberating that.
we were all sort of heading for university, all that kind of thing.
Structured, you know, and it's the sad thing is we buy into that as parents, but the children buy into it as well. So you get them comparing themselves to others, and now feeling even more of a failure because their mental health is so shot to pieces from trying to maintain that pace, that now they're even further behind than they would have been in that paradigm. And that needs shifting, because, you know, we were talking about this earlier, isn't it? It's like, actually, did we need the grades we got to go to university? No. Are we really doing jobs that needed that degree at university? No. You know, are there other ways that we could have got into this? Yes. You know, there are so many other routes, there's so many other ways. And one of the things I'm loving about, you know, our journey at the moment has been watching my son. He has a PDA, pathological demand avoidance profile of autism, and so he is very clear with his boundaries, and no means no. And I've really just had to, through no choice, I've just had to let go of everything on that, and just gradually watch as he's sort of just flourished. And, you know,
and finding the things himself.
He does. He's just completely unschooled. He just
I remember you telling me not that
himself.
long ago that, you know, he hadn't read, you know, he's not read any books for years or whatever, and now he's like avid reader, and you can't kind of buy enough books for him. And it's the thing, when we take all the pressure off, then yes, I mean, I think for us it's the waiting game that's quite hard, isn't it? But
oh my God, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. 2 to 3 years of unschooling and stopping and taking all the pressure off, and same here. So my son was learning Korean alphabet at the Christmas, so he's not wanted to learn anything for 2 years, and now has learned Korean, is doing some voluntary work using on some online thing, and is learning lots of things through YouTube, and you know, has a desire to be learning, is wants some more challenge, but it's needed there to be nothing really for, I would say, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, that is the scary time, isn't it? Because you know, you fill with doubt, don't you? And am I doing the right thing? Am I pushing enough? Is it okay to let go of all this pressure? And for ages, you know, it went on for so long that I was like,
Yeah, but
you
it
know, the
does
fear
happen.
is there. It's very
Our
scary to
natural
step off.
curiosity and our natural desire to
Yeah,
learn
but
and
it
our
comes back.
does come back.
It
Really
does
does
come
come
back,
back.
and
We
and
just got to
oh,
let go
and
of it.
YouTube is like, you know,
Yeah, yeah. I
I
can
mean,
remember a couple of the other ones when they were a bit younger were around, like, again, a lot of advocacy, you know, needing to do that advocating. And so in school, I decided that we would be late to school. And so
yeah,
that was something school really were not okay with because they wanted attendance to be at, I don't know, whatever it is, 96% or something. And it was regularly below 90, I think, and or even lower. But yeah, it just became very clear that trying to get into school by a certain time didn't work for us for quite a long time. And so I just needed to change that. Going on the bus was creating a lot of school bus was creating a lot of anxiety. So we found some different ways around that where I was trying to flex my work a bit and offer some. I would take on some of the days to try and alleviate that. Yeah, and then there was what was the other thing I was thinking about? Is there anything else? Oh, school uniform, which I know you and I talk about an awful lot, but I can remember certainly with school uniform. Yeah, my son had a very elaborate or a way of being able to meet a certain level of the standards at school, but in a way that meant he felt as comfortable as possible. But even that, on some days, school were not okay with, and it was quite traumatic and just all
it
these
just feels
things.
like
And I
such
just said, I'm fine. I
unnecessary.
don't mind what you're wearing to school. I don't mind. You know, I just took all these things away. And actually, the other thing I was reminded of was. We got close to the GCSE exams, and we had asked to drop a couple of subjects just to create some space. That wasn't
Don't
allowed.
like that, do they?
So we just decided you revise what you're going to revise. That it's just let's just complete the year. It doesn't really matter. It's not about what you get. It's just going to finish the year. And I can remember going to parents' evening or whatever and talking to one of the teachers, and it was about how at the moment not enough work was being done, and they, you know, likelihood was just not enough work. It wasn't enough. And I just said to the teacher, okay, I just need you to know that we're not doing any revision. And I think he just sort of looked at me, and I said, because we're choosing to put mental health ahead of the exams.
How ridiculous.
And he just looked at me, and then he did just say, that's great. Can I just say to you, I'm really okay with you doing that, but I'm going to write that down in my notes, because I also had to say what I had said, because I have people asking me, and so I have to report the other way. So it's helpful for me to be able to say that I have said what I needed to say, but this is your answer back to me. And I was just like, you know, I know that for the teachers, this is bad for them as well, you know.
Oh
But
yeah, it is.
I
It
think,
is.
and my son was with me at the time, and I think it was really good for both of us, you know, to be standing up to the system a bit around that at what was kind of this major moment of pressure where all the teachers were saying, not enough's happening, the grades aren't this, the mock result is this, and you need to be doing more, and we were just like, we're not going to be doing any more, because
And I think
we
that's
need to
where
get through
the
this and be
system
some kind of okay.
and the system is the problem, isn't it? Because the teachers are under so much pressure and they're
Yes.
stressed,
Yes.
and so they can't be that safe
No.
person for our children who are very sensitive and picking up on everything, because they sort of know that they're not okay. And that's such a vicious cycle, isn't it? And that becomes really challenging as well.
I
And
think the other thing was just there's not enough quiet spaces in schools either. I mean, for both of mine, the number of things you have to be expected to join in with or be loud about, or people around and stuff, that has just never worked for us.
no, there's never enough space. The schools, you know, around us, we have huge, the secondary schools are all huge
Yeah.
and busy and noisy, and there aren't enough quiet places. And at the moment, we've got a situation where kind of we've got a lot of children who are not managing in the classroom. And of course, then you've got the one safe kind of space, but
Yes.
that's now longer not safe,
Yes.
because because it's too crowded and too busy, and they
In
can't
there
cope
as
with the
well.
numbers of the children that can't cope. And it's just, so then they're absconding, and then the staff are looking for the ones that are absconding, and then you're like, and so then they're even more stressed because they're frustrated because they're spending their time looking for children who should be in the classroom, but they can't be in the classroom. And then if they're not in the classroom, they should be in this special place, but they can't be there because that's not safe either. And it's just a mess.
I know. So I think we've definitely sidestepped, I would say, a lot of those narratives that we had, or the shoulds that we had as parents. I think for me, it was definitely about making a choice, or valuing more my relationship with my young people. So my relationship with them, putting that higher up and not jeopardizing that, and also putting their mental and emotional health above their education, and that any choice I was making needed to reflect that that for me became the most important thing,
and trusting into the unknown, that was going to be okay, and that
was going to be a much better choice.
And that's a big thing, isn't it? Just to learn to trust yourself, and to know what is right for your children, and then there's a certain number of things we can do around protecting ourselves from the system and from the prosecution and all of that side of it. So a lot of times that feels like a bit of a game, a bit of a, you're just kind of playing the system in order to make sure parents are, but I find that by helping them around that
more. So how did you get, what's your advice to people that are at that point? Because I would say I never quite got to that point where we might have got fined or anything. I think we were on the edge of it quite a lot, mainly around attendance.
So I think if you're getting to the point where anxiety particularly is, or if you're struggling with behaviour as well, that, because actually that is anxiety and fear, but just coming out in a different way.
I had compliance. Mine went more in the quiet compliance mode than in the disruptive or behaviour side. It goes one way or the other, doesn't it? It's not.
It does tend to go one way or the other. It's
just gone one way or the other.
And one, of course, looks so internalized that it looks like they're fine, and you're just making a massive fuss about nothing, and the other looks like they're just really badly behaved and they also seem fine, so other than naughty. So you get these two completely different sort of presentations, but based on, both of them are based on a lack of safety and a fear. And so I mean, my few things I always say: go to the GP regularly. Not because you're really expecting anything out of the system, but because you're logging your concerns, and that puts you in the right sort of parent category. And then when the educational welfare officer starts knocking at the door and kind of getting that, you can immediately go, oh, I've got a printout of all the doctor's appointments and that kind of thing. If it's looking like it's getting more serious than that, again, always put in for a CAMS referral, so that's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. Each local authority probably have their different pathway into that, but you should be able to find that on Children and Family Health. The
thing with that is often because the pathways are so long, because the waits are so long, we can often think, I can't change anything, I can't make any new decisions or choices, even if they feel right to me, until a professional has told me what's going on and what to do about it. But some of these waits, for us, it certainly would have been 2 years before we had that.
Oh, there's very few people would even get into CAMS.
You've got the referral, but now just still make some decisions that are right for you and your children, for their well-being.
That's a really good point. Thank you. This is to clarify. This is not about getting help from a professional or something that's going to make a difference to your child. You will do that. You're the one that's going to. Parents are the ones that, by regulating themselves and keeping themselves out of defence mode and meeting their child's need, they're the ones that are going to make the big difference. This is about just protecting yourself from accusations of not being bothering to take your child to school, because by the time you've pursued you've made sure you've done the GP, you've asked for a CAMS referral, even if you then rejected, you never get to see CAMS, which is likelihood because the criteria is so high. I also advise parents to put in an application for an education healthcare plan. Again, if there isn't enough evidence for that, the likelihood is going to get rejected, but you can even put in an appeal. And, it all shows steps, whether or not you ever get the outcome you want, but it's tiresome.
I was just going to say,
All
all
of
of
this
this, it's
is
really important
effort.
for us to say, as we always do, that you and your emotional and your mental and emotional well-being, your joy in life, you are so important, and that it is hugely draining, it's time consuming, it's an awful lot of uses a lot of emotional energy as parents with our children, with our young people, when these are the issues and the challenges they are coming up against every single day, relentlessly for them, with no real, I certainly think for them, not really many choices, or ways to be any different in it. It's very, very restrictive, and I think that's what is almost the worst piece, I think. So it's so important that we're paying attention to our own energy and our own well-being, and particularly emotionally, I think.
Yeah, it's hugely important because, I look back, and I actually believe, I say to parents to do these things as kind of
Sometimes it was literally every day.
tick box exercises, stuff that you sort of have to do. But I actually believed that they were going to make a difference, these things. And I poured my heart and soul, and I was up till all hours in the morning doing endless referrals and endless paperwork. And all of that detracts from your ability and your energy to be present for your children, which is actually what they need more than any of these pieces of paper and stuff. So do what is necessary to get them the little bits of insurance. And I think an education healthcare plan, if your child's really struggling, is a good insurance thing, because it means that there are options beyond the school system. Mine are lucky now, they're in an alternative provision, and that means that they are slightly sidestepped from the you have to have done this at 16. They're on their own path, they're on their own pace now. And that's amazing, and that has been the result of a bit of battle. But I mean, we just the system ends up drawing us into some adrenaline fueled kind of
and we feel
we're being warrior parents
as well. It feels like we're almost back at school as well, and we're being roped in and recruited by the school to try to get our children in a certain place by a certain time. I can remember saying to school, or to or realizing myself that my young people at 11 obviously did what we have in the UK as SATs test when they reached the end of primary school, and at that point the system makes a prediction of what they expect or see that child can achieve in another 5 years' time. Then they want to, and not only do they then just want to support the child to reach that, they want to add value to that. So they want, the system is we can do that and more. So already on an 11-year-old you've lumped that. And what I realised was there's no allowance whatsoever. That number never changes. It's just in a computer. And at no point was anybody recognising that life was happening for that child in that time. So imagining it was us as adults in a job, and you've got life events happening, you've got health stuff happening, you've got relationship things happening, and all sorts of stuff happens in life. And it's sort of like with the kids, well, it probably is like that for all of us in life anyway, that's our culture, just keep going anyway. But certainly in school, I know some of the things that were going on in that time. I mean, the whole arrival of neurodiversity, my mental and emotional health taking a dive, my ability to parent for at least a year was compromised massively by that. We had some medical things and some hospital admissions, and we had just lots of things that all sort of added up as well that were going on in that time. And yet that number, that expectation on my child, on all my children, never changed. There was never any allowance or empathy really for that. It was just, well, we still have to get you here in the same amount of time, when actually you might have had a whole year. Certainly year 7 was I would say a write-off, but, and I just think that is, I just now don't agree with some of these principles. and therefore just stepped back from that and said, I'm not actually going to support that. I'm not going to be a part of that system and what you're doing with that, and just basically say no.
I had some crazy decisions based around, SATs, which for my eldest, he was extremely ill for. It took me a while.
My young person can locate their anxiety actually back to primary school SATs. When he can go back himself and kind of make more sense of it. He said, I think it started around the time of that summer term when we had to sit those tests.
Certainly for my younger son, that wasn't the be all end all. Things were building up as well, but that was absolutely the final straw. And really, he's not been in a classroom since those SATs tests, and he's 17 now. So there was.
I can remember, and I guess this is sort of giving the young person's perspective a little bit. But I can remember being out having a coffee, I think, with my son, and it was the summer before the last year of GCSE, so it was like the critical year, the year when they were supposed to hit
the whole life depends on
the whole life depends on it. And he'd had a really rough summer, had thoughts about not really being here anymore. Everything was just too difficult, the thought of going back into that school system for another year, and I just had realised perhaps we do just need to stop. It felt like the craziest, silliest time to do it when we seemed so close almost, but I just realized it wasn't worth it for if that's what they really were thinking right now, and just decided I was going to say they could not go back if that was what they wanted. And I can remember sitting there and saying, I've decided it's fine, if you choose not to go back, I'll support you. And their whole body just went like their shoulders actually dropped and their whole posture changed. And I think he just said, really? Like, really? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. We'll figure it out. If you decide you're not going to go back in September, there'll be a way. We'll work that out. You have a think about it. They actually decided they would go back. But then they had chosen to go back, and it was a very different thing because of that, I think.
That makes sense.
I'm going to go back, I'm going to get through it, but I'm not going to do anything extra. I'm just going to show up, I'm going to do what I can, and that's it.
We had the same around GCSEs for my second, and he chose to go in, and I really didn't think he was going to actually, and then pretty much the same thing happened at A levels, and he didn't.
No.
And that just had to be okay. It's just, that's the thing, we have to just make these things okay and trust that they'll find their own way.
But it does mean shifting your sort of order of values, I think, or what's actually getting more certain or clear with yourself about what you've been using as what's important, like what order of importance, and I maybe think what needs to be the order of importance.
I think for, and I look back and I just think how important, how high I put education when I was thinking, the evidence was that, I was picking up my young person from school and we were having seriously violent, challenged behaviour. And to the extent, it wasn't actually really very safe for me and my daughter in the car with him. And then, and you still weren't getting it, and you were still carrying on. And then you kind of like, I started making these little small, like, and perhaps we'll go every other day, so he's still there, but he has a bit of a break.
And there's no point where you can cut, because if we blame ourselves, or we get blamed, or get become responsible, or the child it's something wrong with the child, or they're not responsible. We never seem to be able to put responsibility or fault or accountability for what's happening in our young people with the system or with the education system.
No.
And I think that's what, in the end, I realised it was the system, it was the setup, it was so many things about that were responsible. It wasn't anything really for us. It was that. And so then I think once we were clear about that, and also that you were never going to get them to agree that. Never was a teacher going to agree. They might have known some things in it were not great or not perfect, but they never took any. There was never any feeling that they was
definitely where I am now and where I work, and a lot of the children that I'm supporting are going. I think we are lucky in that we do have a Senko who does kind of get it, which is really helpful. And she recognises that the school can't meet needs, which is a big relief to those parents. But then there isn't anything that's offered instead. So now you've got your child at home, you don't feel you can leave them at home on their own because they're not mentally very well, and then you can't work, and then you get whole other peripheral problems. But in the end, it's probably, the alternative is just to keep doing the same that you're doing and still get more miserable results, and I think our house turned into a war zone before I realised that this was just ridiculous. And
you try umpteen other things to try and sort it, when actually, when you take the education system out of the equation, or even if you're engaging with it but with a very different story, the pressure cooker valve for us just sort of kind of went down, and it didn't mean we had some of that, but it was just undo that valve and let the steam out, which I think was the pressure of the system.
And the steam did have to come out gradually, it took a while. And it did. And I remember having a conversation, when my son was so much better, and just, just asking him a little bit, about what was going on. And I said, it was really like quite shocking behaviour and stuff like that. And I said, I can't believe it of you now, because you're so calm, and and he said, well, I didn't have any choice because grown-ups don't listen. And I said, oh, can you say a bit more about that? And it was just like, he was very articulate about it. He said, well, I say no, I can't do it. And then you get I would just go for a bit, you can manage, it'll be fun when you get there, and we do persuade. And I think,
it's all trying to convincing energy, and something you've got
we
to
do that,
and cajoling, and
how many times you look back and you think, I did that when you didn't want to go to that birthday party, didn't I? I did that when you didn't want to dress up for that. I did that when you think, oh, okay. And I made a pact with him then that whenever he said no, I would listen. And no means no in our household. Children, they should have a right to say no.
Well, again, I think if we don't, then they begin to lose touch with themselves and their own intuition and their own needs.
Their own boundaries. And then they grow up into adults who don't have boundaries.
Or they dissociate. They just dissociate and then are not in their bodies at all. I think that's what's happening for an awful lot of people. Or then I think get very depressed, which is just that you just can't, you sort of get to a point where you just can't function at all.
I feel like we've got to give people more hope than this. I'd just like to say that unschooling is a very exciting thing to watch once you go over it.
Deschooling is scary, but that's more about us sitting in what feels uncomfortable and very different, because we're so used to thinking that we should have the answers, or it should be going.
It's uncertainty, isn't it? It's total uncertainty. We've just taken a dive off a very tall board at the pool, and I'm a bit scared of heights, that kind of thing.
But the exciting thing for me is that I now have young people, none of whom have followed a traditional path beyond GCSEs, that they are now beginning to thrive. They are finding hope where before there was just despair and really maybe not even a future at all. Confidence is growing in various things. They are making their own choices about what interests them and starting to move towards those, using their hobbies to, my daughter's got a little cake business because she just loves baking, and this is a child who had no confidence whatsoever and had various things said to her by teachers about what they felt she would have potential for later. It's just total rubbish. And so I think that to me they definitely give me a lot of hope, and I've had to trust. It's just trusting. The other thing I think for me is trusting that my children know themselves and they know what they need, and trusting their choices. That has been really big for me, to trust that they know and go with what they say yes to.
Yeah, so we need to trust us. We need to trust ourselves.
Yeah,
that it's okay to step off the treadmill.
Yes.
Really, that's really difficult, but we do need to do that. And yes, and absolutely trust them. And that's that's much more the relationship that we have. And like, you know, I trust you to know what you need, and for you to let me know if you need my help. And otherwise, you know, we're going to go along at the pace and trajectory that you're turning towards. And that is actually a very lovely thing, because I don't have any of the kind of, it does take a lot of battles away.
Yes, I think it's, for me, it's letting go of the fact I don't have to get you anywhere. I
It's
don't
not
have
my
to get
job.
you anywhere, like
It's not,
physically, but no, I don't
yeah.
have to get you somewhere in life by a certain point. I don't have, I don't. It's for you to it's for you to figure out, and I'm
It's for you
along for
to
the ride.
explore. It's
Yeah,
for
I
them
kind of
to
just think now I'm along for
explore
the ride with them a bit. That it is a, you know,
and be curious about it all, and yeah, just
and
let
that you can
go.
do that at really quite young age as well. You know, I know parents who are unschooling children under 10, you know, 6, 7,
Oh yeah.
and they're leading they're doing homeschooling or other ways, and the child is leading based on what they want to be learning about, and they have a lot of opinions and views and ideas, and it's a beautiful thing to just actually treat our children as fully formed human beings who do know themselves. It's not that I'm sure there's more to know about themselves, but I just really love thinking that the person that knows you best is you, you know, and that probably has come from me also thinking the person that knows me best is me. When I get back to that, you know, I wandered a long way from that, but I think now I really believe that the person that knows me best is me. Anybody else who's got opinion about me or what they think I should be doing or choices I should be making, they might have an opinion, but they can't know because they're not me. And I think the same now is true for my children. I just can't know that, and it's not my responsibility to know that. It's not my responsibility as a parent to do that, which has been, you know, I think that gives you, you know, there's a lot of energy you haven't got to use for that.
So much energy saved. Really there is, and it's a lovely thing to have that relationship as well, where they feel that you trust them.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a mutual kind of respect thing as well, isn't it? And it makes a very big difference to the relationship you have with your children, and I promise you they are learning.
It is more
It
about just
is,
knowing what
yeah.
everyone's different needs, different aspirations are, and seeing how together you can create those and make them happen in ways that don't need the system in the way that it exists right now, I think. Does that sound more hopeful? I hope it
I
does.
think so. I hope we gave some hope in the end, because it is hard. You know, I do recognise that, you know, and people, I think you need to find really, really helpful if you can find some people that kind of, you know, have travelled this path, you know, reach out, because it's lonely, you know, on your own, and you get a lot of judgment from others, don't you? When
Yeah.
you're dropping off that system, and
We're
every
just
now and
doing things a bit
again,
differently.
yeah, every now and again you think you've completely got over it, and then you suddenly have just everyone's GCSEs results come out or
Yes.
something, and you know, you get another little
Am I
reminder,
doing the right thing? Yeah. Have I done the
or
right
everyone's
thing? Am I
going off to
doing
the
the right
ball,
thing?
that
Yeah.
the proms, and like, oh, didn't they? I was like, oh, mine didn't go to the prom because I don't go to school, you
Because
know.
we're not doing this, we're not going to have all the same milestones. We have to have our own milestones and our own celebrations and our
Yeah.
own, and I just have more of them. I'm like, let's just celebrate more often.
If this episode has resonated with you, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching to get notifications of future episodes. To dive deeper into all of this with professional coaching, resources, and all the support you need, join us in Love Indifference via www.loveindifference.net. And we'll be back here soon.